Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Deep Cut Dive. I've got, once again, in the co-captain's chair, he's either on this side or that side, Mr. Chris Alo. Welcome back. How
Hey,
you doing
everybody.
this
Thanks for
morning, my
having
friend?
me.
Good to see you again, Chris. 2 days in
Thanks
a
so much,
row.
Pete.
Gotta love it. Gotta
Yeah,
love
this is great.
it. Gotta love it.
Things are
So,
almost back to normal.
almost back to normal. Yeah.
Almost.
Maybe one of these days you'll be sitting here next to me in the not too
That
distant
would be great.
future, right? But in the meantime, this
Yeah,
will have to do. So
absolutely.
today, Chris and I are each going to offer up 5 recommendations of deep cuts from the catalog of Ronnie James Dio's solo band Dio. Remember, these are not the radio hits, not the greatest hit selections, not the songs from the live albums, not the songs that the band played all the time. We're trying to go a little bit deeper. If they played them live on a tour or two, not a big deal, but we're trying to go for the less popular songs that the casual fan might not know. So we're each going to give 5. All of you watching, if you're big Dio fans and you know the catalog really well, offer up some other suggestions for the newbies. That's kind of what this is all about, to introduce people to songs from albums they might not know. So I'm going to have Chris kick us off with his first selection here.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. This one was a tough one. I almost didn't include this track, but besides it them being deep cuts, they were songs I really enjoy, and it's one of the few songs that I feel from Dio's later career that really kind of I thought matched up to the stuff he did the first couple records, Holy Diver and Last in Line. And so my number 5 pick is the title track from the Killing the Dragon record. I just love that song. I know they did play it a couple times live, but I just think it's a great track, and I think it could have been on an '80s record. And I had to look it up to see, like, well, was this a single or a video or anything? It wasn't. Like I said, I know they played it a bunch of times, but also too, I mean, as much as I love Dio, outside of the hits and the concert staples, this one was a little tougher, coming up with tracks that I really love. Like, for Maiden, it was a big master list, and for Dio, there was, outside of the obvious, I was like, like, how many of these tracks do I really enjoy? And
That
I
you,
was
that
like,
you would
well,
recommend, right? Yeah, exactly.
exactly. I'm like, Killing the Dragon. I'm like, that's a great track. So that was my number 5.
Yeah, I kind of like what we talked about yesterday on the Maiden show. It's like you could look at a lot of the latter period stuff that they've released over the last 2 decades, and most of those could qualify for a show like this, because the casual fan doesn't know any of that stuff. Nobody,
Right.
a lot, they don't listen to the newer material. They're still listening to the '80s albums, and I get that. And it's kind of similar when you're talking about Dio's catalog, right? It's like the
Yes.
stuff from the '90s and the 2000s. People really don't know that as well. Granted, there's a quality issue here, I think, as well. But
100%. And much as I love Dio, it's just, yeah, some of the, especially the later albums. But hey, some of the earlier albums aren't great.
right. Well, I mean, we about a year ago we did a top 10 song show on Dio together,
Oh yeah.
and we struggled to pick anything out of the first 2-3 albums.
I was just gonna say anything that wasn't off the first couple. So
Right.
yeah.
I will say, in recent months, I have made it kind of like a mission of mine to re-listen a lot to those more recent albums.
Okay.
And there are a couple of them that are really not that strong, but I have actually grown to really like a couple of them, which I think I'm going to kind of touch on a little bit today, more so than I ever did. Because I don't know, I didn't give a lot of these albums a chance. I think
Same.
when you grow up with certain albums, you kind of have that emotional attachment to them, and then the story. So I purposely today did not pick anything off the first 3 albums.
Okay.
Because I'm like, all right, most of those songs are pretty well known. I think most people know that stuff already. So I wanted to kind of go way deeper. And my first choice is going to be from Dream Evil from 1987.
Okay.
And I'm going to go for a song called Faces in the Window, which
Great
I
track.
think, right? I mean, it's like, it's speedy, it's heavy, but it's kind of very commercial, because would kind of fit with some of the stuff that was coming out right around this time. And I just think it's like kind of like a forgotten song off of here. And I dig this album. I have liked this album more and more as time has gone on. This is Craig Goldie's first album with the band. I think he does a fine job. He's no Vivian, but you know what? That's okay. And I think that's a really cool tune on here. So Faces in the Window from Dream Evil is my first selection for the day.
Which is a great track. I mean, I struggled with something from Dream Evil, because I actually totally dig that record. I hated Sacred Heart. Still really don't like it much. But to me, Dream Evil was a big return. And yeah, I really Faces in the Window is a great track. I do remember them playing that on that tour in '87.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, excellent, great. That's a great pick. My number 4, a fairly obscure one, although it is on a few things out there. But I'm like, how did this not make the record? And other songs like "Shoot Shoot" did it. "Hide in the Rainbow," which was on the Iron Eagle soundtrack, and I know it's on the Dio Diamonds European collection. But it's a dark, moody track. A little heavy on the keyboard, so it's got that '80s, that 1980, that Sacred Heart sound. But I'm like, man, this is a really good song. How did this not, make the album? But some of these other horrible songs on Sacred Heart are there. So yeah, I think it's also, no, I was gonna say, is this on Vision Quest? But no, that's Hungry for Heaven.
Yeah.
Which is also not one of my favorites.
Right. Yeah, that's a good selection. I mean, that's not only a deep cut, that's like a forgotten cut.
Yeah, totally.
Because bands were doing those like songs on soundtracks quite a bit, like the late '80s into the early '90s, and a lot of those songs were really good and kind of just forgotten about. I'm thinking like Queensryche and Alice in Chains would drop these very cool songs on these soundtracks, and it's like, oh, that's great, but then forgotten all these years later, right? So that's a good one. All right, my next selection, I'm going to go, this is an album that I've been listening to a lot lately. And it's one of those albums that like I just really didn't get into back in '93 when it came out. But now I'm like, man, this album is so freaking heavy. Strange Highways, Blood from a Stone.
Okay, wow.
Really heavy song. Yeah, that's a total deep cut, right? And I think Tracy G's guitar work on this album is actually very underrated. Screaming lead guitar solos on this song, heavy riffs, and it's just got this big, heavy, plodding groove to the song. From Vinny and Jeff Pilson from Dokken, and I have a recent love affair with this album and I'm glad, because it's like I've always been like, all right, when I want to hear Dio. I'm talking about the solo band. It's like I reach for those first 2 albums, maybe Dream Evil, and not much else. And lately, I'm like, you know what? Lock Up the Wolves and this album are really good. And I think Chasing the Dragon's a good album too. I don't have as good as stuff to say about 2 other albums in that time period, but we'll kind of get to that in a minute. So
it's funny. I almost put the title track "Strange Highways" because that's another.
That's awesome.
Plodding, heavy song that I love, and I do really like that record. And I always felt, well, "Strange Highways" was, the Dio went heavy because, well, he just did a couple of years with Black Sabbath, so we gotta, can't come out with another, poppy.
Hungry for Heavy.
yeah, we can't do "Hungry for Heaven" or "Rock and Roll Children" Part 3. So I definitely like "Strange Highways," and
it's almost like "Dehumanizer" Part 2, sort of.
Exactly. Right? Yes, 100%. But my third pick, just because it's one of my favorite tracks. I know I saw him do it live once. It is off the Holy Diver record, and it's "Invisible." I just absolutely love the Vivian Campbell guitar riff. Just an amazing, rip your head clean off riff. I just love that track. I think I saw him do it on the Magica tour. I think one of those 2000-ish tours, but definitely not a track that the band Dio would do live. Except they did that Holy Diver tour where they played the whole record. Of course, not in America. Only, but yeah. So I just love that track.
That's a good one. I think going in, like I said, I was going to ignore the first 2 albums here for this exercise, but then I looked at the first album. I was like, well, you know what? That song and Caught in the Middle could have thrown out there, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I tried to go for most for the later albums, just because most people don't know a lot of the stuff on these albums anyway. So I figured, I wanted to make this a little bit more difficult for me, because I think the top 10 episode we did a year ago was so easy for the both of us. It was just a matter of like, well, how do you rank them, right? Because we know all the songs that are going to go. Right. So, all right. So I'm going to go to another album that I've been listening to a lot, which I think I just mentioned, is Lock Up the Wolves. which I think is a pretty damn strong album, I think. And I'm going to go to Evil on Queen Street.
That was almost on my list. Almost just off of it.
You know what I like about this song? It's kind of bluesy and doomy at the same time. It's just got this kind of like oozing quality to it. It's got some really good guitar work from Rowan Robertson. And I think this is like probably from this was what, 1990, right? So I think from like, from all the albums that were released post 1990, I think this is probably the most underrated one. And I think that if Rowan had stayed with the band, well, obviously, Black Sabbath happened again. That's the reason why. You have to wonder, like, what it would have been like for this band had he stayed on. And because he's a terrific player. He was, how old was he? 18 when this was released?
17, 18, very young.
I mean, could he have been like the next Vivian Campbell in the annals of like Dio history? I don't know. It's
totally. And I always wondered, well, when the Sabbath thing fell apart, well, why didn't Dio go back to him?
Right. But then again, if that would have happened, would we have gotten that big, angry, Strange Highways album?
True. No, that's true.
So I don't know.
Right.
Interesting to think about, though. So
that Evil on Queen Street. That's a great track. I almost put it on my list. I always think of it because there's a on 84 in Connecticut. There's an exit called Queen Street. And I don't know why. There's a restaurant up there I always used to go to, and I always think of that. And then I had just recently read, and I was like, is that real? Where Dio said that the song Evil on Queen Street was about a deli in Canada or a sandwich at a deli in Canada. And I'm like, wow, that sounds crazy, but maybe I'm not crazy for connecting it to a restaurant in Connecticut. But that's good. But all right, my top two, again, I was just going, all right, well, they're not the concert staples or the singles, but they're songs I absolutely love. So maybe I cheated a little bit. I know I saw him do this once live on the Lock Up the Wolves tour, and that's Egypt, the Chains Are On. Just a big epic. To me, it always, the Egypt, the Chains Are On, to me, always kind of reminded me of like the little brother to Stargazer from Rainbow Rising. Not enough, people that love the first two Dio records probably love this song already, but man, I just think it's underrated as far as those first two amazing records. And I'll be honest, some of the latter Dio stuff, like Magica, I'm like, I can't listen to this. This is terrible. So I went back with the songs that I love, and I'm like, all right, Egypt, the Chains Are On.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember because I saw them on that tour, the Last in Line tour. Did they play it live that tour? I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah, they did, right?
Because it's on the VHS for that Spectrum special.
Yeah.
Which I didn't see the Last in Line tour, but I'm like, all right, that was my criteria. Like, all right, did they play it on the album tour? And then it would be okay if they only did it one time since. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll put that one in. But yeah, just an amazing track.
Yeah, I agree. And I never saw them play it again. So it's but I didn't go. All right, so I know you don't like this album, and I'll be quite frank, I don't really like this album too much either. I know people love this album.
I don't, and Ronnie loved it. I don't know. He was doing a trilogy. I'm like, what? This is like you make the worst movie ever, and then you're like, I'm gonna do two more of these. I'm gonna do two sequels. But there's that one, Fever Dreams, I liked. Other than that, I couldn't stand.
All right. Yeah.
Tell me, because maybe I'll have to go listen to it.
Well, I picked Ariel. Okay, Ariel. Yeah, it's like, to me, this song is kind of like his answer on this album to Stargazer. All right, okay. And it's a pretty proggy song. I mean, most of this album is pretty progressive, I guess. I find this album a little long-winded and overblown. It's, to me, it's not immediate. Like, you listen to this and it's almost like, and I know a lot of people love this album. So guys and gals, if you're watching and you love Magica, that's totally cool. I mean, it's just.
And Ronnie himself loved that record. He was so proud of that record, which again is lost on me. But I remember that tour. There was a particular tour. He played the whole record.
Yeah.
And I hated it, but I went. I still went. I still supported. But yeah, Ariel. I have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a good song. I wanted to pull something from this album, and I kind of struggled. That's probably one of my favorite tracks on the album, but it's just, I love concept albums, but man, this is just like,
Yeah, it's a struggle.
to me, I feel almost the same way about this album as I do about Judas Priest Nostradamus.
Pete, I was just going to say that. To me, that's Dio's Nostradamus. The only thing that makes Nostradamus worse is it's a double record.
Yeah.
Which Ronnie would have beat them because he was going to do 2 more. Magica 2 and 3. Which,
man.
Yeah.
So we apologize to all of you who love Magica. Like I said, if you do, it's cool. I mean, you can't like everything, right?
No doubt. And like I said,
love
Ronnie
Dio,
himself was very proud of it. So I remember too. I have it somewhere. There was that song Electra that he had recorded. I believe that was going to be part of Magica 2, and he put it out as like some rare CD single, and I wound up buying it. And I was so excited to hear something new from the Dio band, and it's terrible. It's like the worst song. And I'm like, wow, if this is any indication of what Magica 2 and 3 would have been, this would have been just as bad as the original, maybe worse.
Yeah.
But again, no offense to anybody who likes that record. I mean, Pete and I, of course, absolutely love Dio. So, but yeah. All right, Ariel, though, I'm going to go back, Pete. Maybe I should just listen to that whole record.
Have fun.
All right. All right. Well, my number one, again, I'm cheating, but this is one of my all-time favorite Dio tracks. Somewhat of a deep cut because they did it on that tour, and then I saw them play it once in the 90s, and it was originally recorded. This one to me, sort of like Total Eclipse. It was from Maiden. It was recorded for the Holy Diver record. And then they put it out on the B-side of the single for Holy Diver. But then they did re-record it and put it out on the Last in Line record. And it's Evil Eyes. Just one of my, it's just a fast ripper of a track. Great riff, just fast driving song. And I'm like, man, this is Dio, a 5-star classic. And which I think got overshadowed by the songs Last in Line and Rainbow in the Dark. And Don't Talk to Strangers, well, the hits off those first 2 records. But yeah, I just love that track, and that's one of my favorite Dio cuts. Again, I was looking for, all right, what's a song I really love that's not a hit or a concert staple? I don't know if there is a Dio. Well, there is that Dio Diamonds Best of, which came out in Europe, and it's funny. I saw last night that Evil Eyes is on it's on one of the versions, but it's not on the record, which I actually have the record. I'm like, okay, that's funny. But yeah, that's my pick.
That's a great one. Great show. I'm glad you picked that one because that it would have been a shame if neither one of us picked that song.
Yeah, I just love that song.
So my final choice, I'm going to go to the Chasing the Dragon album.
Okay.
And my initial thought was I really want to include something from Masters of the Moon. But then I re-listened to that album and I'm like, you know what? I don't really have anything to recommend off this album. That's really not a very good album.
No, totally forgettable.
It's very plodding and just like not interesting, Whereas I think this album is pretty damn decent. I don't know if Doug Aldrich was the right guy for this band, but I think he cranked out a bunch of cool riffs and he's a great soloist, I think. So, pretty good album, and Better in the Dark is my choice.
Okay. That's good too.
Good memorable chorus, rocks pretty hard, good riffs. It's kind of fast paced. It has that kind of like early Dio feel to it. And I think most of this album is actually pretty solid. This is not a spectacular album by any means, but I think if you're looking at all the latter period stuff, Strange Highways, Lock Up the Wolves, and this, I can listen to and pretty much enjoy. For the most part.
Agreed. There's some like that song Push, which was a single, that's on there.
Yep.
There's a couple really good tracks on there. Again, just like you said, Pete, not a great record, certainly not in line with Last in Line and Holy Diver, but not bad. There's some good material on there.
Yeah.
And in thinking about doing the Maiden and Dio, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's part of the reason why there's not more quality Dio tracks that are amazing, because, well, it was just Ronnie was the main songwriter, and Maiden had a lot more collaborations. So plus two, it was always a revolving door with Dio. Like who's on which record? I don't know. Is it Craig Goldie? Is it that Tracy G? Who's playing guitar? I don't know.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you look at a lot of, especially metal bands who had that whole revolving door policy for a
Right.
period in time, those albums tend to be not remembered as fondly as the ones where they had that band that people can kind of really latch onto. And let's face it, the first Dio band
Was great.
is always going to be, and again, you had all those guys writing.
Right.
So yeah, the revolving door thing, I don't think does any good to anybody.
No doubt. No
Really
different than the first couple of Ozzy records. Same thing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, wow, what a great band, great records, and then after that, it's like, oh, okay, and kind of a mixed bag. And who's in the band? The identity of the band, gets lost.
It's lost. Yeah, exactly. So this was fun.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pete.
Yep. So the drill, guys. If you're a big fan of Dio and the whole catalog, offer up 5 deep tracks or 10 deep tracks to those who aren't. And it'll be interesting to kind of take a look at the comments and see what other songs people throw out there. I want to thank Chris Alo for coming on the show again. We'll be seeing him again real soon. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Coming up tomorrow morning, Deep Cut Dive with Martin Popoff, Scorpions. And then on Friday, Martin's back on the show again for a deep cut dive of Black Sabbath, so you don't want to miss any of them. We got a jam-packed week here this week, so all sorts of great guest stars coming on doing the deep cut dive. And for Chris Alo and Pete Pardo, we'll see you guys later on. Take care.
Thanks, guys.